Good evening, everybody. I hope you've been, this is around the time that everybody is finishing work. So hopefully you're all cozy and at home. But yeah, today we're at the Black History webinar working with not going to university, and we're working with the Black Apprentice Network today. I mean, I've been excited for this collaboration. I know Kwesi and the rest of the team have been too. So yeah, let's just run through what the Black Apprentice Network does, as well as what not going to uni does. But today we'll be introducing our team first. We have me, Ruben Poku, one of the co-founders of the Black Apprentice Network. I'm a chartered manager, degree apprentice at Amazon. I've been doing that I've recently started this year, because before that I worked at KPMG as a solicitor apprentice for 2 years. Been an interesting journey, but yeah, the Black Apprentice Network is something me and Kwesi founded in 2022 September. I'll talk a lot more about that later, but when Kwesi joins, he's the one who's always excited to start with that story. Not sure if he's in the room, but Kwesi is one of the other co-founders. Oh, is that Kwesi?
I can start. I could talk.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the Black Apprentice Network, which the reason why Ruben says that I love this story, right, is because me, Ruben, and Elijah met in year 12 at Imperial College London at an event that focused around getting people into uni. And me and Ruben didn't know each other prior to this meeting, but then we were able to reconnect via the Amos Bursary, which is a charity that helps change the narrative around young Black women and men of African Caribbean descent. And all of us were expected to go to university, and we were comfortable going to university. I think Ruben was gonna enjoy his time in Nottingham. I was gonna enjoy my time at Imperial. But then when it came into results day or the final, or like that settling in period where you ask people who you don't know whether they got their grades or did get their grades, in our group chat, we messaged each other saying, "Oh, what are you guys doing next?" All of us said apprenticeships, and we're like, "Wait, how did we all end up like?" We didn't actually discuss that we were going to do apprenticeships, but it was something that we just ended up doing. So we already had a decent network of 3 people, which isn't a lot at all. So when it came into our first year, we realized, okay, there must be more people that are doing apprenticeships from our community, and we want to meet them because we were getting sick of ourselves. We were actually only talking to ourselves in all of our my only Black apprentice friend like outside work was Ruben. So we said, look, let's make this network to make, of course, more friends. But then we also realized that we were getting a lot of messages from aspiring apprentices on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, can you help us with applications, CVs? I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. Can you help us?" So that's what made us turn into becoming the Black Apprentice Network, which has a focus on the current apprentices as well as the aspiring apprentices. But that's the story. And we just turned 1 year old about 10 days.
Yeah.
It's been really.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for introducing what we do. That's in the next slide as well, so we'll go a lot more in depth. But yeah, we have Natasha as well, if she can jump on camera and mic to introduce herself, and then after that we'll have Mercy.
So hi, I'm Natasha, and I'm a software engineer apprentice at Goldman Sachs. I actually met Kwesi at the Insight event that the firm held for the incoming apprentices in my year. And so when I joined the firm and when I became more embedded in like the apprentice circle, that's when the band was something that was up and coming. So it was really exciting to see that there was a group of people that were committed to having a space for like Black apprentices, just because in like young Black professional spaces, I feel like there's still a sense of like missing out, just because we don't really relate as a collective in terms of like the university experience as a whole. So it's just nice that we have a community where we all kind of go through the same thing, but we're also helping a future generation as well. And I'm head of operations, so with that role, I help a lot with aspiring apprentices do that.
Yeah, she does a lot in our team. Don't let her being humble deceive you. But yeah, thank you so much. Mercy, if you can jump on camera and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Mercy. I am a data analyst degree apprentice. I work at Vodafone, and I'm just about to go into my second year. So yeah, and I'm also not going to uni ambassador. I actually came across the Black Apprentice Network last year at some point. When I first started, I think you guys started when I was in my, like I had just started my apprenticeship. So it was really
Okay.
nice to yeah, see what was happening. I'm a very like introverted person. I stay in my house all the time. I'm at church. So this is really great to sort of see other young Black people, professionals sort of come together. So it's,
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, I'm happy that we have you, speaking with us today. And yeah, we'll get into a bit of the story that Kwesi talked about. As we said, me and Kwesi and one of our other co-founders originally, who's now working on his own projects, Elijah, we were able to meet due to social mobility organizations, and recognizing that the role that they filled within our life, we thought it was very important to kind of create a space for other Black apprentices, just people of African and Caribbean descent, to connect with each other as well as provide resources for each other. We've always said, you put a lot of Black people within a room and they kind of already know how to interact with each other. This is largely because of like how we've been socialized and the similar backgrounds we come from. Well, so important for us to have that kind of awareness that there's other people who look like us and who are like us within our space. And yeah, just sharing that awareness. Like now we've been talking to a lot of aspiring apprentices. We have, I think, around 350 members who are aspiring apprentices. And we've been trying to spread the kind of demystify the message around what apprenticeships are within the Black community, as it's being stigmatized so largely as I think previously it was largely vocational, and now that it's moved towards more corporate roles and all of that, we think it's an amazing opportunity for Black students to take. So we've been kind of marketing it, creating that awareness and education about apprenticeships, and just making sure that they're aware of what they will be going into as well as what they could go into. Because I think we've talked about in the TikTok, no, within our WhatsApp group chat, how it's so glamorized on TikTok sometimes, or it's either like hated on or glamorized. And what we want to do is just provide the kind of pros and cons list for people to fully understand what they're going into. But today we'll be talking with not going to uni, and they've been showcasing, alternatives to standard university routes for school and college leavers. I remember when I was leaving sixth form, they were my number one website to kind of look for opportunities and see their ambassadors kind of do their thing. And I was inspired. I'm not gonna lie. I was staring at those TikToks maybe like every day during lessons when I shouldn't have been. But yeah, it was really helpful for me to understand what opportunities I'd be able to get, which were not university after I finished sixth form. Yeah, they work so closely with schools, colleges, careers advisors, and they have a team of NGTU ambassadors such as Mercy to kind of drive awareness and share that message about the different career paths and what they involve and all the tips and tricks and advice. So I would definitely look out for them on they're pretty much on every platform: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. But yeah, definitely follow up by going to their website. You'll definitely see a couple things that you'd enjoy. Onto the next slide. So today we're in the middle of Black History Month. We're half the way through, and I just like to talk about a little bit of facts about the Black and African diaspora within the world. So there's 1.2 billion people globally who are of African descent, and I'm not gonna lie, that was a shockingly large number. That was like across Europe, Asia, the Americas, and all of that. And out of the 3,000 billionaires in the world, 14 of them are Black. A lot of them are within the social media and entertainment space, such as Rihanna, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, and then we have Dangote, who's a rich businessman from Nigeria. I think the richest billionaire in Africa, and the richest Black billionaire, if I'm correct. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot more ways to make money than just kind of the business route, which you can kind of see within the representation of all these different people, which are prominently in our face and social media and all of that. But on a smaller level, on a more academic level, Black Africans are among one of the most educated ethnic groups within the UK and the US, which is interesting to me because seeing how it translates within careers is quite different. For example, the average wealth of households with a head identifying as Black African was only 30,000, whereby their white counterparts was 282,000, which is nearly 9.5 times greater. So what I wanted to talk about is social mobility and race. So social mobility is just the ability for an individual or a group to move up or down the social ladder. Often this is determined by finances, income, education, and occupation. For example, when you have, let's say, a working class parent who may be working a manual labor job, being able to get a qualification and then move their job up into a more, let's say, for example, corporate space, or a more, as they call, traditionally skilled area where the salaries are a lot higher, allowing for them to increase their quality of life. So despite the challenges that Black, Asian and minority ethnic people face, there are a number of things that can still be done to promote social mobility for Black, just going to say BAME, people in the UK. This includes investing in early years education, providing support for Black students in schools and colleges, and creating more opportunities for Black people to enter and progress within workplace. And I think that's largely encapsulated by apprenticeships. I've been saying this, apprenticeships are an amazing opportunity for those who are already disadvantaged, as well as those who are just looking to move up within their career outside of university. So these are the statistics. 75% of students, of BAME students, are interested in apprenticeships. That number kind of decreases when you look at it with broken down within, let's say, for example, the Black students. This is it's a lot less than Asian and other minority ethnic groups. However, it's quite high. This means that it's not largely an issue of they are not interested. It may be they don't know where to look. They don't know how to apply. They don't know how to get to the next stage within the application stages. And that's one of the things that we focus on within the Black Apprentice Network, building the skills, the soft skills, like doing assessment centers and just networking with each other, how to talk within interviews and all of that. 29K apprentices are of African and Caribbean background, which is a lot. Within the country, I think Black people are 4% of the population, but they are heavily overrepresented within the university path, which is, I think it's, I want to say around 10%. However, within the apprenticeship space, it still remains at 4% because a lot of the Black community still don't see it as a viable path after college and sixth form. So we're trying to increase that number dramatically, as we're still underrepresented within the apprenticeship space, even though this number is amazing, seeing that there's 29K of us and there's just a lot of people to meet within this space. Unfortunately, this is just simply not enough when you look at like comparatively how large apprenticeships are. I think it's almost 700,000 apprentices within the country. And then, yeah, we have 59.9% of Black pupils progress to university or other higher education, which is, it's large. 60% is very large, and I remember seeing this in comparison to other racial groups, and that's an amazing number. However, what we've been seeing with the UK is a push for apprenticeships, and seeing this as an alternate, but not just alternate, but as a main path after sixth form and college. And what we want to do is kind of create that pipeline from sixth form and college to apprenticeships, even secondary school students who can participate in level 3 apprenticeships. So the benefits of apprenticeships: earning and learning. I would say that having a paid employer and working without incurring student debt is an amazing opportunity for students. Student debt constantly changing with the government times. I remember seeing that the interest rate rose, and remembering me and Kwesi having a conversation about how that doesn't quite affect us. And earning money as well, being financially self-reliant and economically viable by yourself at a much earlier age is an amazing opportunity for young people to build financial literacy and have the opportunities that they would want within that age. The average salary is around 21,000 and on average, depending on the industry and level, as well as the organization, being able to advance your career by working in a world-class organization. The amount of like organization names that I've heard within our group chat within the Black Apprentice Network, where we have 400 current apprentices. Honestly, I'm constantly shocked. I've heard names like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Goldman Sachs, Amazon, and just industry leaders of all industries. As much as I focused on, the tech and the law and the finance industry, what I've seen is a push for different industries as well. I've seen pharmacy, AstraZeneca, which is like AstraZeneca, GSK, and even recently the NHS is trying to adopt a doctor's degree apprenticeship. So, I mean, that's something amazing to look out for. And networking with other professionals. I think Kwesi can talk a little bit about this and how it's such an amazing opportunity to be able to meet people in the spaces that we've been able to enter as degree apprentices. If you can jump on mic.
Yeah, definitely. I think networking with other professionals is one of the biggest reasons why apprenticeships separate you from other people. Last Friday, me and Ruben were invited to the US Embassy just through networking, and the way that we were invited to the US Embassy came from a prior networking event where we were able to invite a couple people to the City of London. And being invited to areas like that, it becomes normalized because as apprentices, you're recognized as young professionals. You can have conversations with individuals that are in the same company as you. Of course, you might be talking about different issues, but they relate to you on a professional level compared to just relating to you on the level of this person's a young individual. If you were a student, you wouldn't be able to talk about a lot of company issues or a lot of corporate issues compared to being an apprentice. So I'm like all for networking. Last year, I was able to work in New York for a month through networking. This year, Ruben was able to work in New York for a month through networking. Like a lot of this really just proves that, like, it's the cliche, like cringiness of every finance guy saying your network is your net worth, but it's honestly true. And as an apprentice, it gets accelerated a lot because people recognize, wait, this guy is 18 and I really want to help him because I could see his fire, I could see her ambition in the craft, and they're going to be way more willing to help an 18-year-old than a fresh graduate because there's an understanding as a graduate that you should have already learned this because that's what they had to do when they came there. Whereas an apprentice, which is literally learning on the job, they are very, very committed to teaching you on that job as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that segues quite well into gaining recognized qualifications, as a lot of us are. I mean, I think most of the people on this call, me, Kwesi, Natasha, and Mercy, are on level 6 degree apprenticeships. So meaning that we get a degree qualification from an educational institution. Most of the time, it tends to be a university. However, there's a range of other amazing educational institutions such as BPP, Multiverse, that you should have seen quite a lot in the news due to the apprenticeship being pushed by the government quite a lot now. And just you can gain an amazing qualification at the end. So it goes all the way up to masters and starts all the way at BTECs and A-level level qualification. So it's an amazing opportunity, and quite a few are now pushing towards more prestigious universities, such as I go to University of Exeter. I know that Kwesi goes to Queen Mary University. So I think that kind of backing from Russell Group universities is something that, kind of destigmatizes it within our space now. So being Black as an apprentice, like, and what problems will you face and how do you deal with that? I think me and Kwesi had a webinar with Uptree recently where we were able to discuss some of the issues that we've faced in the past. And one of the largest problems that we discuss with our current Black apprentices is isolation and imposter syndrome. So isolation and imposter syndrome occur largely because, first of all, being one of the youngest within your organization, probably the youngest at your point of entry as an apprentice, can be quite difficult. Not being able to fully understand the technical side as well as maybe the soft skills. I remember when I was entering my degree apprenticeship at KPMG, my first apprenticeship, I remember searching what kind of things do I need to know going into the legal industry because I was a solicitor apprentice. And I saw something saying, if you have brown shoes, they may not respect you as much. And I fell for it. Like I had no clue that these type of these type of kind of rules, social rules were there within the industry. And when I started talking to lawyers, I realized that that's just not true. But there were other more complicated things that I needed to understand simply because I was not from a background which taught me these type of soft skills, as well as I wasn't able to network as much when I was younger. And then because people from my background are not often seen within this space, so there wasn't many people to learn from. However, the people that I did meet on the way were amazing examples. So one thing that you can do to prevent encountering this issue, or at least it being detrimental within your career, is joining employee resource groups, or ERGs, such as, I know that when I worked at KPMG, they had a Black affinity group. I know that Goldman Sachs has quite a few. The company that I work in at Amazon, we have our Black Employee Network, and a lot of these organizations have spaces designated for Black employees to kind of connect with each other, share resources, and oftentimes have events. I know that during Black History Month, a lot of these organizations have been hosting events and being able to share resources like mentors, as well as like opportunities to work on larger projects and all of that. And it's been an amazing Black History Month. But what we want is that every month to be some racial equity, as well as diversity and inclusion, to be a focus within workplaces for people who are not able to feel as integrated to benefit from working within these organizations. Networking. I mean, that's one thing that you always hear from me and Kwesi. I mean, when our younger students within the aspiring apprentice group ask us for tips, our first one is usually networking. I think it's getting quite boring for them, but it's always true. Being able to go out there and just introduce yourself to other people, amazing opportunity. Just make sure that you'll be able to, back yourself, practice your elevator pitch. That's one thing that, when you meet somebody the first time, you don't want to give a negative first impression. So definitely work on what you'll be able to say, and, represent yourself accurately. It's not always just about the role. Sometimes it's about other things that you do in your life. I remember one time I done my elevator pitch and told somebody that I'd done kickboxing, and they said, "Oh, so do I?" I was like, yes, finally, I'm in there. There are a lot of social and professional opportunities in and outside of your organization. I know that there's like award shows. For example, I went to the Multicultural Apprenticeship Award Show recently in Birmingham, and a lot of apprentices within different organizations and different industries were there simply because they were nominated or went out of their way to seek nomination. And quite a few within our network, and I'm boasting here, won awards. I think Alicia was one to name, and she won for I think it's management and consulting. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for apprentices which are not within your space specifically. Like there are recently there was a Black Tech Festival. There's been so many conferences all over. The One Young World, which was in a different country. I think that was recently in Belfast. Sorry, that was in Ireland, if I'm correct. But yeah, I think it was an amazing opportunity from what I've heard. So just looking out for those opportunities. And the soft and technical skill gap. One of the things that we see within Black apprentices is, or at least aspiring Black apprentices, is that they may struggle within the application stage within certain tests. For example, psychometric testing. We talked to one of the organizations, and they said it's not a lack of applications within their organization. However, there's a difficulty getting Black students past this stage, and that affects their diversity and inclusion. So they recognized it was an issue, and they wanted to do a workshop on it. So one thing that you should do is do extra training, research, and practice. There are so many resources online that will happily teach you how to do all these fancy tests. I remember when I was applying to KPMG, there was one critical reasoning test where you kind of have to do recognize shapes and patterns. And I remember thinking, why would I ever need this for my role? However, it was so important for getting me into the role that I wanted. So I kind of had to do a lot of research. I remember sitting down with my little sister who was doing what's that exam after year 6 to get into grammar schools, whatever they do there, so that I could kind of understand what the hell am I looking at right now. And after a bit of research and practice, I was able to pass that test and get into my role. But it's always about taking that extra step. Seeking mentors is very important. May be able to teach you technical skills, tips, and tricks, and just be able to be that confidant within a space which may be not as easy as an apprentice, especially as a Black apprentice. And constantly asking questions. Your team will always be willing to help. I don't remember ever having somebody younger than me ask me a question and gatekeeping the truth. I think it's very important for people in senior positions to share that information, and oftentimes they do. And now dealing with racial barriers such as microaggressions and maybe the occasional more difficult experience. And I would always say communicating with your team, your manager, and people within your space in general, what's been going on with you in terms of, any negative experiences, so that they're aware and they may be able to provide solutions. Building a relationship with HR. Remembering that HR works for the organizations that you work for, but they always want the best outcome for their staff as well as the organization. So try your best to keep in communication with them. Finding BAME programs which may be able to benefit you progressing in your career. I think there was a statistic that was around 50% of Black professionals feel as though they weren't able to advance in their career as they were not either taken seriously or they were perceived to have like a lack of technical skills in comparison to their white counterparts, which can be a damning statistic when it comes to progressing within your career. I know that quite a few apprentices want to move up and move up fast, so it's going to be important to leverage every opportunity you can. And yeah, connecting with other BAME staff, that could lead to, getting mentorships and sharing other opportunities. Now, what can organizations do? So in order to allow diversity to thrive, I think one thing that we've talked about last time, and I know Kwesi will definitely jump in and say his part, is improving apprenticeships overall. So improving apprenticeships overall means just clearly communicating the expectations and plan. A lot of apprentices come into their organization without like a fully solid onboarding plan that was communicated towards them. So they're not quite sure what they should be doing within their team, making them feel like a burden, as well as their team may not be able to provide them with the tasks for them to build the technical skills. And that's so important for them, because once you make them feel as though they don't know what they're doing and their team isn't sure what they're doing, that's already a barrier to entry for them to progress within their career. A lot of them aren't even fully onboarded onto the technical programs or fully like on the system and all of that. And having to deal with that within your first few weeks can be chaotic and overwhelming, on top of just being in a completely new environment. So clearly communicating that and executing their onboarding plan as much as possible. It's just to prevent the skills gap, so that they're not left behind within their team and aren't just used for basic tasks. That's another thing. Treating apprentices as learners and not exploiting them for basic tasks. This ensures that you're maximizing their learning experience so that they can be better employees overall, rather than having them do the repetitive and monotonous basic tasks that it may be like consistently providing them admin work instead of actually getting them to work on projects. As apprentices are here to evolve and learn your organization in and out, it'd be better to use them as they're I want to say they're a lot more flexible in terms of what they're blank slate. They can learn a lot of the things that you can provide towards them. And then helping diversity thrive. This is creating safe spaces, working with diversity organizations such as ourselves, and there's a large plethora of organizations within this space that will be able to benefit large organizations such as BYP. I know that not going to uni helps quite a bit in terms of like HR and all of these type of things. So there's a lot of things to do as organizations to help their BAME students and apprentices advance as much as possible. And yeah, there's also making smart goals. I think Kwesi can talk a bit about that in terms of what organizations are doing to take action.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be interested to hear Natasha. I mean, me and Natasha are the same company, but definitely what Mercy's company is doing. I think for our company, I'm happy to say that they have increased the amount of apprenticeships that they offer. And for example, in the latest cohort of operations apprentices, there were a lot of Black talent and a lot of Black female talent in that. Whether that was the intention or whether that was the main scheme at hand for that, I'm not sure. But I'm just really proud to say that they did have a really successful round of the percentage of Black talent being greater. But I'll be interested to hear what Mercy has to say, and then Natasha can chip in either on this slide or another slide.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about Vodafone. So this year, so I work for Vodafone Group, and then there's Vodafone UK. So we have like our smaller hubs, the little markets, so Vodafone UK, Ireland, Spain, etc. So in the Vodafone U Group cohort this year, we actually decreased our numbers due to various things in the economy. But there was quite a few Black and ethnic minority apprentices joining, so it was really nice to see, as well as the genders were varied, so it wasn't just more male or more female. So it was a quite nice balance, I think, especially because we've reduced our numbers this year. So yeah, it was a good one. But I can speak for my year as well. We had our induction had both Vodafone Group and Vodafone UK, and it was really great to see quite a number of young Black professionals entering the world of work, myself included, as well as the females It was a really good balance. I guess they did it intentionally to ensure that diversity and inclusion it's met kind of thing. But Vodafone is a great diverse company.
Thank you. I think if Natasha wants to speak, or we can talk about what the Black Apprentice Network has been doing within the past year, actually. I think it was recently our 1-year anniversary. So happy birthday to us. But yeah, within the Black Apprentice Network, as well as all the organizations that we've been working with, is focused on promoting apprenticeships. So as you can see, that Not Going to Uni does largely and amazingly is sharing the opportunities that apprenticeships can provide. So this may be like events and webinars such as this, as well as just sharing what apprenticeships are available within the current time and just making sure that that underrepresented groups are able to be targeted by outreach efforts, and dispelling these misconceptions, demystifying any stigmas, and making sure that they're aware of the potential that apprenticeships have as a route after sixth form and after college, making sure that they're fully able to understand where it can take them within their career and informing them as much as possible. We make sure that we're collaborating with different organizations such as NGTU for inclusivity. This is also including employers, educational institutions, and making sure that they fully understand how to ensure that diversity and inclusion is a target and a goal that is achieved. We provide tailored support and inclusive recruitment practices, sharing all that research that we've done within our group, as well as just having open conversations within our Black apprentices, aspiring apprentices, with these organizations to make sure that they fully understand what is being said on each side, fostering a sense of belonging, just making sure that Black apprentices can have a good time and have a good vibe. In comparison to our university counterparts, it can be quite an isolating experience. So making sure that they have friends and people that they can build professional and personal relationships with is so important. And then resource sharing, we kind of just serve as a hub for sharing valuable resources, whether it is events or information or advice or just practical resources as well. I remember that, like the recent BGN hackathon, I know that people put, that opportunity within the group chat, and I think a couple of people met up as a team. So that's all good. But now to wrap it up, we're going to be doing a Q&A with me, Mercy, Kwesi, and Natasha. Just ask us any questions related to apprenticeships or related to diversity and inclusion within organizations and our general experience. Yeah, well, that's what we're here for. So
Yeah,
the chat. We can probably answer them first.
Okay, I can't see what's in the chat, so if you guys can point and say any questions out loud.
So someone asks, is there an age limit to apprenticeships? It depends on which apprenticeship or level you're applying to. I think and someone needs to correct me if I'm wrong, maybe level 3 is like equivalent to like A level?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
Level 3 is A level, right?
Yeah.
So level you need to be 16. And then level 1 and 2, I think it's GCSE level, so maybe like 14. But degree level, so level 6 and 7, you have to be 18 to
I think it's largely dependent. Like some people do career switches where they may require to do like a level 3, level 4 qualification switch, but a lot of them, as she said, will be targeted towards people within a certain age range. However, like degree apprenticeships is really any stage at which you feel like career switching or anything like that.
If I could just add on that, because I'm not a school leaver, I did my A levels about coming to 10 years ago. So there's no age limit in Vodafone. I'm a mature student. So I know Multiverse has a limit. You've got to be 24 to do like their ones, but most companies don't have like a cut-off limit. So you can, if you are looking for a career switch, which I was doing, an apprenticeship with Vodafone was great. So there's no like, it depends on the company, but most companies don't have like a cut-off. So yeah.
Definitely. It's as she said, it's an amazing opportunity to career switch and kind of leverage that opportunity that organizations are giving you to get that qualification. So there's definitely not going to be an age limit on a majority. I want to say more than 95% of apprenticeships. So don't worry about that unless it's specifically stated by the training provider or the organization.
Someone asked, what resources are there to practice the fancy test? So I'm assuming fancy tests means like psychometric testing, like situational judgment testing. There are so many resources online. I think not going to uni, I have a feeling I might have seen a page dedicated to that. But there are lots of resources online because a lot of these tests are also used for graduates as well. So if you just do a quick Google search of like psychometric testing, situational judgment, I can't remember, which one did you refer to, Ruben? I can't remember the name.
Critical reasoning tests. Yeah.
Those type of tests, it's good to do it. I did take the UCAT exam and it's very similar. It's a bit off topic because UCAT is more for medical students, but the same type of topics, like when it comes to apprenticeship applications, kind of apply. So like, what would you do in this situation if this happened? Because I think that is really useful. And are there any books on networking that you can recommend? I've never read a book about networking. Have you guys read a book?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I don't remember reading any book. I think that networking is like socializing is one of the things that, you kind of have to get out there and do instead of like, there's definitely going to be a few tips and tricks you can learn from a couple books here and there, but I think largely it's just about going there and kind of figuring it out. You will make mistakes talking to people and just saying the wrong thing the first few times. I remember like one of the first time I started networking, I was so nervous. I started so many times that I was like, okay, I might as well not have this conversation anymore, and was so tempted to leave. But it's kind of just about building that experience and, just learning how to talk to people in that professional context. And a lot of people are so patient that they'll even like give you tips and tricks on the way. Like they might say, you did this well, but next time you approach somebody, maybe say this and you might get this opportunity, or they might like point you out to somebody or something like that. So but if there is any like resources, I think we'll try and send it to the Not Going to Uni team and see if they can send that over to people on the email list, but we'll see how that goes.
Someone has asked, are there any processing centers, writing CVs and interviews that you can recommend? Not to be Band's biggest fan or anything, but as our part of like our scheme to help people do apprenticeships, we're actually doing like an application, application sort of like session or webinar thing in November. So we're kind of going to be covering like cover letters and CVs, like situational judgment, psychometric testing, and then in January we're going to do an in-person interview skill session as well. So if you're part of the band, you'll know exactly what we're doing and when we're doing it and the details. But if you're not, I think we can, Cressy, if it's okay if you can like drop the link of the chat in the meeting chat and you can join and then you kind of know what we're doing just because we are actively planning that.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's a question for you. Someone has asked, you mentioned earlier that you're an introverted person. What would you say from your experience was the hardest part of the apprenticeship progress?
I think for me the hardest part was the assessment center because it was virtual. Um, I think attempting to stand out when you are behind a screen can be difficult. And I think to ensure that it's sort of you just have to feel the fear and do it anyway. In as much as I'm an introvert, I'm very much somebody that stands in front of people and can speak when I need to. I do outside of work, I do performing arts, so I'm a musician. So standing in front of people is it's not as difficult as it is, but it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. When you get on, before you do anything and you're afraid, you sort of get through the emotions and do it anyway. But the hardest part was probably the assessment center, having to have an interview or having to being in a room like this, and the group exercises. They were smaller, but that was probably the most difficult part.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, okay. So I think this is for you, Ruben. I think you mentioned about a solicitor apprenticeship. How did you find that?
Yeah, so I remember realizing that I was heavily in the direction of being a solicitor. Actually, I had the advantage of going to an event in year 10 that I met a solicitor apprentice who was kind of like, oh, this opportunity, this opportunity. But by the time I got to year 13, I forgot all about that. So I remember looking online and just not going to uni. That's one of the main websites that I looked at. Rate my apprenticeships. I'm gonna try and put these links in the chat or just put the names in the chat so that you can look them up. And just searching solicitor apprenticeships. The gov.uk apprenticeship website is amazing as well. They're just putting any opportunity within each industry there. And searching up top law firms. I went on Legal Cheek, which has like a list of all the top law firms, and then put in the name of each law firm and then apprenticeship. I've done that for like hundreds of law firms and just made a list of which ones I wanted to apply to, and then was able to, find the early careers websites and yeah, just register my interest or just apply. So I would say not going to uni, rate my apprenticeships, gov, yeah, .co.uk apprenticeships, and another one is prospects.co.uk. They share opportunities there as well. But yeah, look on each law firm and their early career website and just search if they do apprenticeships. Yep, as Jade said as well, LinkedIn and Indeed. They do UCAS as well recently. Yeah, UCAS is pushing for that. I'm on the student advisory group for UCAS, and I know that they're doing like a large push for apprenticeships and sharing those opportunities. So definitely look out for that.
Someone has asked, do you gain insight into other firms, for example, Springwinks? I'm not sure if this is coming from a student's perspective, but I know a lot of companies do kind of announce insight sessions. I know, for example, Goldman Sachs is hosting one this Friday. And I think Bloomberg did one last week as well. So if you just keep a lookout, I think LinkedIn is probably one of the best social platforms to have when you want to do apprenticeships, just because a lot of recruiters post on their accounts, okay, we're doing this event, here's the sign up. So if you kind of get embedded in that, and also again, not being band's cheerleader, but if we as a team know that a company is doing like an insight session, usually people approach us, then we share it to our aspiring apprentices, and that's how like other people can like sign up, just because not everyone has LinkedIn, so it's good to kind of share as well to other people. Like if I see it, I usually share it, and I know that like a lot of other people within our team say like my company's doing an insight session, here's like the details, and we pass it on.
Yeah.
I have a question. How come you left your apprenticeship, and what should we look out for before joining a company to avoid needing to leave?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the largest things that you should look out for, I'm going to start with that, is a lack of information on what is actually being done on the program. As in what you'll be doing day to day. I think the job description being vague is a very, very big red flag. I wouldn't say that it's something that I struggled with, but quite a few apprentices were on my scheme struggled with not understanding what tasks they'll be doing. Not even sure, like they signed up, they got the offer, and then they started the role and they were like, okay, now what do we do? And that kind of was difficult because they had no clue what they would be doing on that role. However, what I struggled with within KPMG was it wasn't necessarily KPMG itself. I think I struggled with the training provider. There was just a lack of organization in terms of like providing the resources and all of that. However, KPMG definitely improved their program, like using the feedback and all of that. But yeah, I think one thing that as I said, lack of information, as well as look out for the training provider. 40% of apprentices drop out of their apprenticeship scheme, and one of the largest causes is issues with the training provider. So I would definitely look out for, what the feedback is. Go on to Rate My Apprenticeships, very good website in terms of like people giving feedback on what their apprenticeships scheme includes and all of that. So yeah, just if there's anything else, just feel free to ask me on LinkedIn at Ruben Poku. But yeah, that's my biggest advice without going in too deep.
Someone asked similar questions, so I think I'll just skip that one. Someone has asked, what would you say is a good way to effectively network with important figures in your career, in the career path you're currently interested in? Also, what would you need to be ready for interviews? I think Cressy, you should probably answer.
Yeah, Cressy should answer this one. Yeah.
The first part. First part.
Yes, the first. Well, if you want to answer both, that's
What was the first part again? I heard the networking, as in what's the effective.
So what would you say is a good way to effectively network with important figures in the career path you're interested in?
I think if you've identified who the important individuals in your career path, you've pretty much done it. The next stage is like just taking that courage, like having the courage to actually go up to them. Once you start interacting with these individuals who are so-called big players in the industry, they know they're big players, so they know why you're coming up to them to talk. Like there's individuals in my firm who I've spoken to and I've emailed them, which I haven't even wanted to go into their career path, and I just emailed them for a chat or like for a free hot chocolate or anything because they'll just pay for it, right? And then they'll just say something like, "So are you interested in what I'm interested in?" And they've taken the assumption of this person is young in their career, I'm at the top level. They automatically want to leverage something out of this conversation. So if I did want to be in that career path, that's job done. However, I for that situation, I don't. But if you've done the hard work in identifying, okay, this is a big game player, this is a managing director of this division, which is my dream division. The minute that you reach out to them and they respond, you've done the hard work. Them responding is the hard work. A lot of cold emailing really happens in the networking space.
Yeah, just reaching out on LinkedIn, whether it's even in person, like if you spot somebody that you're interested in communicating with. If you're in an apprenticeship program already, a lot of organizations kind of have like a place where you can see who works on what and all of that, and just looking through that. Let's say I remember because I wanted to join Amazon Prime and what team like that type of team, and I work in Amazon Logistics. Going on that like phone tool that we call it, like and Microsoft Teams or Slack or something like that, and just seeing where they work and what they do, and just reaching out to them and asking them a few questions is always helpful.
What was the second part to that question?
What would you need to be ready for interviews? I'll just say practice doing video interviews. I know like the upcoming years, they probably weren't hit too much in terms of like COVID, so they probably didn't have that experience of like talking at a camera. So it's just about like training yourself to like look at the camera, don't look across everywhere, also being in a quiet environment, and just getting straight to the point. Because I think a lot of these assessment centers, they do require like for the first few stages for you to have like pre-recorded video interviews, and there's a timer on it, so you kind of need to practice answering questions, getting to the point within like a minute. Like you don't have 5 minutes to say one point. So I think it really helps because a lot of apprenticeship schemes, like their interviews are quite similar, just because they're not really looking for like, for example, on a technology apprenticeship, they're not going to ask you like, okay, what does this mean, what does this algorithm mean, what does it do? Like they're not looking for that, just because for the majority, like not a lot of people know that. So they'll ask very generic stuff like, okay, what would you do if you were in this situation? give me a time when you did this, and it's just about practicing. How am I going to answer this question in this time by giving a good example, but also getting straight to the point? I think is really good. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think as Jade said in the chat, just being you is very important. Like being authentic, one thing that organizations look for is just somebody that is authentically themselves and can bring that to the workplace because they want to see that personal interaction. It kind of boosts motivation, morale, and it also just makes for interesting characters on their own team as well. And they kind of want to have as much fun as they can whilst working with good and intelligent and skilled people. So definitely just like try and practice not being so rigid as Natasha said, and just being yourself. I think somebody in the chat asked like how many apprenticeships would you advise or recommend applying to? I would say like as many as possible, even outside of the industry that you're interested in. Like one of my regrets was not apply when I was applying to legal apprenticeships. I only applied to like 3 or 4, and I was lucky to get into KPMG. However, I would apply to like looking back, I would have applied to like 20 plus, even within industries that I was just thinking about and all of that. Luckily, it's not similar to UCAS where they only have 5 or 4 options. You have as many as possible. So I would apply as much as possible whilst managing your time because applications is like a side job. It takes quite a lot of time during application season. So
I think that, I mean, like, these are my thoughts, but apprenticeships are going to become centralized and they are going to become like UCAS in the 5 rigid things. So until that day, I think you should apply to as many as possible. I think I applied to 18 because why not? If you get all the contracts back, you can choose to say yes to no to all of them until the final day. Not sure if that's legally correct, but you can do it, right? And yeah, as Ruben said, applying to 3, like apprenticeships are way more competitive than university right now. So like applying to 10 is really, really good because because you don't want to get rejected for all of them. And it's a chance because you have thousands of people applying for little roles compared to university where it's still thousands of people applying, but they can then take around 500 a year for your course. But do be wary that the application game it's a side job, genuinely. Like it does. There are going to be times where you do have to prioritize their apprenticeships in terms of like, because a lot of the assessment centers and timelines can literally fall on the same day. So there was times where I had to like say, do I really want this apprenticeship when I've reached stage 4 and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't my musing. But the reason why you also apply to as many apprenticeships as possible is because you just build up like sheer confidence and like you in progressing stages, you can do maybe 15 higher views. So by the time you've done your 16th one, you kind of know the game, you have experience, you have like skin in the game in terms of, okay, this question, if this comes up, I know I'm going to say, I don't even need
to prepare for it. Definitely. And I think I'm seeing, when would you say apprenticeship or application season is? I would say like from this month, October, even some are open in September. So September all the way to March. However, some organizations hire on a rolling basis, such as like KPMG. I think Deloitte do as well. I'm not sure if it's that, but some do hire throughout the year. So all the way up to August. So I would keep my eye open all the time. Quite a few open during like February, March. So like it's never too late to look for an apprenticeship program. But yeah, this is definitely the season you look out for your organizations putting those applications, like opening them up on their website and all of that.
Do we only have 5 minutes left?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, you can come in some more questions.
I think someone asked employees look into a digital footprint when considering employees for apprentices. I have no idea. I don't know.
Yes. It's not that they're looking into your digital footprint to check, is this person like posting X, Y, Z? They look into your digital footprint at any job. Once they search your name, like it's not like, oh, Goldman is saying I need to check this guy's following and what they're posting. But at any job, it's not just apprenticeships. Like even when you're applying to like Tesco, trust me, they check. I think it's a national requirement. So
Yeah.
that's something that is tailored to apprentices. Like
Yeah.
posting bad stuff online, just don't expect good things. So
Yeah.
like it's not a digital footprint, but it's just a background check of has this guy been flagged up?
You have to remember that you're working with sensitive information straight away.
Yeah.
You have access to systems that people have, there's clearance levels, but the moment you start, you're getting access to databases, to so many things. So they have to make sure that you go through security checks. The security checks that we went through for Vodafone were ridiculous for, you've got customer information. I was working in internal audit and I've got customer information, inventory information. So all of that is to make sure that people's data is protected. So it's standard. I can only imagine what Goldman Sachs one,
100%. And even above and beyond that, it's also about just protecting their reputation when it comes to clients, because they may like reach out to like an international client and you may have said something on a political, religious basis where it could impact, like, they don't want to work with you simply because you said this or simply because you posted this, or they want to mitigate that as much as possible. So yeah, I would be very careful on social media. I've even seen people lose their university offers over that kind of stuff. So I would like, I would also don't follow people that you work with on Instagram and all of that. That's my personal advice, but unless you're like really, really close with them.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a question as well, actually. I'd like to be part of the Black Apprentice Network. What would I have to do?
Yeah. I think Natasha, can you put in I don't have chat function, but if you can put in the links in the chat, but if the links don't go in the chat, if you type in Black Apprentice Network on our LinkedIn, or if you go to our TikTok, it should direct you to our chat.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll try and find it. How much does the salary usually increase by after the apprenticeship degree is finished? It varies from company and what level you did. I don't think there's like
I would say no, sorry, Natasha, keep going. Sorry.
I wouldn't know how to answer it, just because I think it really just depends on the person, which company you were, which role you were in as well, and like there's so many factors that goes into it.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that after, though, I would press for a much higher salary than like graduate salaries. I would go for roles that are not typically something that a graduate from university would go for, just simply because you have 3 years, 2 to 3 years plus of work experience. So ensuring that you're leveraging that as much as possible. For example, like, I know that the average degree apprenticeship, no, just the average apprenticeship overall, the salary is 21,000. So after like leveling up during that, I know that quite a few end on 25 to 30K. So just ensuring Mercy looks so shocked.
I'm so sorry, that's wild.
Yeah. It's
I guess it also varies on company.
It does.
From where my standpoint, our starting salary was 21 as well. But once we started living costs, everything, so we got an increase in within the first year, but our salary goes up every year, and the Vodafone starting salary now is like 24K, which is incredible, and it goes up. And also for what I know for Vodafone is that if you offboard into Vodafone, depending on the band that you offboard into, the salary will increase drastically. So you won't go from you won't end on 30K and remain on 30K once you finish, kind of thing. If you offboard and you have networked really well, and you met some really great people in the company, and someone's given you a good word, and you've interviewed and done well, you can be off to there's no limit on what band you can offboard into for. So it depends.
I definitely agree. It's largely dependent on you. You're probably the largest factor. Like, you should also look at organizations outside of your what we call like mother organization, the one that took you in for an apprenticeship. Just because a lot of apprenticeship programs may just lead to a graduate role. So potentially look outside of your organization for a role that may better suit your experience level, and all of that. As she said, it depends on the economy, the company you work on, and all of that. Yeah, there's such a large range in terms of salaries as well. So and I think salary transparency is very important. Talking to younger people within organizations usually comes out much better when it comes to salary transparency, because a lot of them are much more willing to share what they earn. And yeah, just making sure that you have the right conversations with people within the organization already. During application season, go on LinkedIn and talk to people who are already in the role that you want to work in. Just being aware of time. Laura and Parisha, I'm not sure if we can run over because I'm free to keep going, but I know that it may not be possible.
If you guys want to carry on, please feel free. Completely up to you.
Okay, for sure.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah, we can run for like 5 to 10 minutes more and then.
Someone's got one in the chat about relocating and would the company support the cost?
Yeah, I know that one of our apprentices, Alicia, she went to France for like 4 months and they paid for her rent at home within the UK as well as her rent in France and the whole cost of reallocation and all of that. And obviously you have the network for that type of opportunity. Kwesi was able to work for Goldman Sachs all the way in New York City. And it wasn't a paid opportunity. However, just having the opportunity to work out there, well, he was paid for the hours that he worked, but he wasn't paid specifically for like working in New York type of situation. So there's a lot of opportunities for reallocation, whether it be your team or international secondments and all of that. Depending on, the timing as well. Sometimes you might just have come at a bad time. I was meant to go to New York when Kwesi did, but due to the Ukraine-Russia war and data protection situation, I wasn't able to go. So it just depends on that. But there are going to be a lot more international opportunities to work than people say online. I've seen so many. I've seen somebody go to Singapore. Somebody recently go to Spain. I think that Alicia's going back out to like Italy or something like that. But yeah.
I think someone asked a question, would you say experience beforehand applying for an apprenticeship affects whether you get in or not? I don't think so. Just because I do believe that apprenticeships are for people who have experience in that given field. And so it's unfair to expect that for candidates. I didn't have experience whatsoever in software engineering. I don't think I knew anything up until I hit my desk. Just because I kind of decided quite late into application season that I was going to do apprenticeship. I think 2 years ago, around this time, I wasn't even thinking about it. I think I only considered it in like January, February. But I would say like don't fret about experience. I know a lot of people within our network especially are very worried, like I need to do all these courses, I need to do all these things. I'm always saying like it's okay, like just as long as the foundations of your application, like your CV, if you want to put a cover letter in there, if your like tests go well and your interviews go well, like you'll be absolutely fine. I think having a weak CV and experience like courses doesn't help, just because if you don't get to the interviews and you don't have the opportunity to actually explain what you did in that experience. So I think it's so much better to actually invest a bit more time into application over like trying to do as many courses as possible, just because like long term that doesn't have any benefit. And it's just so important. Like that's literally the first layer, is getting through HR who read the CVs and stuff. So it's so important to like make sure that your structures and grammar is okay in that.
Yeah, as she said, it's going to be important just to show that you're willing to learn. Like she got to the desk and then started learning about what her role would include. So just showing that you have a genuine interest within this field and are willing to learn the skills that that make you a professional within that industry is going to be important.
I think I think that's like, I'd say like the big things that recruiters look for: willingness to learn, being able to work with people, and from an apprentice standpoint, having work-life balance and ensuring that you have good time management is like, have no evidence that you have time management, that a bit of an issue. So just like ensuring that like if you have any extra responsibilities, I know some of you guys have jobs, like put that in, just because it shows that you're managing having a job while studying. Gives an indicator to like your recruiter, actually this student can have a job whilst doing A-levels, like this is great, maybe they can actually do the apprenticeship. So I think it's really important to like prove those skills.
Yeah. Is it good to apply for apprenticeships outside of your city? I would say so. I know quite a few apprentices that like move to completely different cities. When like Nottingham, Manchester, Birmingham, and all of that. I think as long as you make sure that the salary compensates you for how much it costs to live out there. I know somebody I know struggled when they moved to Birmingham because the salary was quite low and wasn't like being making them able to afford living out there. So they had to try and relocate and currently they commute to Birmingham from London. A lot of the time, sorry, you can commute from the city you live in to the workplace. As Mercy said, a lot of the teams will be a lot more accommodating. They will say like, okay, you can if you can only come over this amount because the as long as the work gets done, it's kind of all right. So just communicating with that team is important. Regarding CVs, I've heard it's hard to make them specific. Yeah, definitely. I would say like make them specific for the industry. If you have time, make them specific for the organization and what kind of principles they and values they have. I know that like for example, when I was applying to Amazon, I made mine very leadership focused because I was applying to a management role and Amazon has like leadership principles, 12 of them, and I try to include them as much as possible in my CV to kind of stand out. So just looking up the values and what kind of, like ethics or something like that that's very important to the organization and trying to include those type of skills within your CV and cover letter. In terms of networking, what would you say the approach professional? I would say let it be a natural conversation. I think Kwesi is very good at making sure that it's a natural conversation where you, at the end of the day, you're both humans and you have a lot more in common than you think. I remember talking to one of the other co-founders, Elijah, and him telling me, we all eat, we all dance, we all go and have fun sometimes. So it's just about like getting down to the bare basics. Like even if they're not from the same background as you can talk about the differences, but a lot of the times you have more similarities than you can recognize within that moment. So just try and leverage that as much as possible, asking what their hobbies are, where they're from, and all of those type of things, and just having that general conversation because it's better to meet a nice person than somebody that's trying to leverage you as a character. So
I think also we're human. Sorry, Natasha.
Sorry,
yeah.
Oh, you.
Sorry, I just wanted to just add something really quickly. Remember that they're humans. Just because they're senior people, they are also humans. They have hobbies. They're down to earth. They have children. They have, they've got experiences, and you can talk to them about that. Because if it comes off as you're wanting something, it's not natural, and it's not as genuine as it appears. So just be yourself and find something that that you can speak about. But they're humans. So, yeah.
Like is important just because like I think a lot of people that are in like leadership positions kind of probably already feel like people treat them differently. So I think if it's kind of a standpoint where like you're treating them as a normal person, that might help. Just because if you have more of a natural flow in your conversation, it can like benefit the relationship that you're trying to kind of forge.
I would say if you're networking with like, it's different. Like have intentions, like don't waste their time, because I think that one of the worst things is talking with an individual and you know what you want and you just can't say it. It's definitely important to be really natural, but sometimes have intentions of this conversation, and this is a bad conversation, this is a good conversation. I think start it at a natural pace. Don't say I want a job, but definitely say like, how are you, weather's cold, right? XYZ, start to know them, and then you start to slip in, oh, I'm interested in XYZ, I've seen that you've done this as well, can you tell me about that? It's like, oh, okay, I used to do this. And then literally I think once you take an interest in something that they generally love to talk about, it'll go really far.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think in terms of time, I think a lot of us will have something to do after. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody who joined. If this was informative, make sure that you give feedback to us or not going to uni and reach out on any social media platform. I think Natasha or Kwesi have shared the link to the Black Apprentice Network group chats within the chat function. So definitely look at that and you know, we're always free to have a conversation on LinkedIn and all of that. So thank you for coming so much. I'm not sure if Parisha and Laura are still here, if they can do like a little goodbye, because I'm so happy that we're able to work with not going to uni today, and kind of they were able to host us doing this webinar. So thank you so much to not going to uni on behalf of the Black
Thank you
Apprentice.
guys. That was a really, really informative webinar. I hope that everybody found it as useful as I did. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Mercy, as well, representing not going to uni. Fabulous as always. Natasha, Kwesi, Ruben, yeah, thank you guys. We're looking forward to carrying on working with you and seeing what we can do.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mercy, by the way. I hope we can keep in contact and see you talk within the group chat, and because you were dropping dimes today. So
thank you so much for having me.
no problem. Thank you. Bye, everybody.